Welcome. My name is Craig Christensen, co-founder of FranklinCovey's sales performance practice. I'm excited to spend a few minutes introducing FranklinCovey's new prospecting process, helping clients succeed, filling your pipeline. Would you agree that prospecting tactics that have worked in the past are just not cutting it anymore? Prospects are more informed and have more choices than ever. They're also busier. With so much noise, do you ever wonder what decision makers and executives are really looking for? Recently, my colleague, Randy Illig, and I had the chance to conduct research with top executives of various sized companies to find out what they like in the sales process and what drives them crazy. Specifically, we researched how they prefer to be sold to. You might be interested to hear that almost every single one of them told us they actually want to meet with salespeople. That is to say, if the salesperson is good and actually adds value. They also told us that the vast majority of salespeople who call on them are very poor listeners, not well prepared, and they spend too much time talking about themselves as if it was all about them. What buyers tend to hear is something like, "I love us. Others love us. I'm sure you'll love us too. Okay, enough of me talking about us. What do you think about us?" And for some reason, that just isn't appealing to them. In the process of trying to gain access to prospects, salespeople struggle. And while they're struggling, quotas are getting bigger. Management requires more results and more profitable revenues. While salespeople know they should be doing a better job of preparing for prospecting, it's easy to sacrifice quality for ever-increasing quantity. They get stuck in performance patterns that don't yield the needed results. And at what cost? What could ineffective or suboptimal prospecting be costing your organization? Let's do some conservative math and figure this out together. Take out a sheet of paper and let's at least get a directional sense of the value you might be missing. Let me share some bottom line impact with you that we have experienced with our clients. Write down the number of salespeople in your organization. For illustration purposes and to keep the math simple, let's make our example 100 salespeople. Write down the average quota for each person. Let's say it's $1 million each. With some very simple research, you will be able to assess the actual number for your sales organization. Let's break your sales team's performance into a natural performance curve. The top 20%, the middle 60, and the bottom 20. While your distribution may vary a little, the top 20% often will do 120% of quota. Or in this example, 1.2 million each for a total of 24 million in annual sales. And say the middle 60% or 60 sales reps achieve 90% of their quota on average. This is 900,000 for each rep, for a total of 54 million for the middle 60% group. This would equate to a $6 million shortfall in your revenue plan. Let's stay with this middle 60% for a moment. Let's assume the average sale was $50,000. That means that they are missing quota by only 2 sales. If you could edge this group's performance up by just a little, perhaps by 3 average sales, this could produce an additional 9 million in pure upside. And let's imagine the bottom 20% were using a system that allowed you to identify their challenges earlier, so you can make better choices about how to help or to replace them. The additional revenue uplift would be dramatic with this group as well. And that's exactly what we've seen happen. You don't need for everyone to become a prospecting superhero. You just need to move the middle a little. People who are missing their quota just don't have enough of the right things going on. They need help in terms of what to focus on and how to focus and improve their approach. Over the past 10 years, our sales performance practice at FranklinCovey has worked with organizations all over the world, more than 36,000 sales professionals, and 2,500 sales executives in ongoing coaching relationships that enable us to work with them and their teams for several months following a training base camp. From this intimate perspective, we see patterns of what top performers do. They develop and implement systems that create predictable success. The impact of moving the middle a little can have a quantum, not just incremental impact on profitability. A recent study by the Sales Executive Council claims that A players, the 8s, 9s, and 10s, are 3 to 4 times more productive than average performers, the 5s and 6s. McKinsey & Company chimes in with a study of their own that says A players tend to improve sales by 52%. The B players, 4%, and C players actually decrease sales by 15%. We have found that in every organization we work with, there are pockets of top performers, A players, who are spending their time reaching out to qualified prospects with messages that resonate and add value. We have studied and worked closely with them. We have used this learning to successfully move middle performers. Helping clients succeed, filling your pipeline, is the culmination of this research. Now, what if there were a simple, systematic approach to prospecting that could ensure significant, measurable results? We believe that great salespeople are made, not born, and that you can become great at filling your pipeline if you apply the mindsets and skill sets of top performers. So how can you get there? Just sales training? Most sales professionals have already been through lots of sales training, usually many times. Yet no matter how good the training was, the materials they received are sitting on a shelf somewhere and seldom turn into a solid track record of improved performance. That's because training by itself is simply insufficient. Common sense tells us that no one becomes a top performer as a result of a single training event. What happens is something more like this. Assuming the training was well received, you get an immediate bump in the improvement. Yet without continual repetition, reinforcement, and implementation, there is an inevitable decline. Within 1 month of the training event, individuals will have lost about 87% of what they learned. They can't even remember most of what they learned, much less apply it in their sales efforts. How's that for return on investment? Let me give you an example of what's possible for your organization. We worked with one of the world's largest consulting companies for several years, who had experts measure the success of our sales process. In the investment, they included every possible expense they could come up with. For the results, they factored out as many variables as possible and then diluted the results with even more expenses to be conservative. Their analysis with several hundred sales professionals following our process was they achieved an annual 80 times return on sales and a 14 times return on profits. An implementation approach can get you similar impact. The secret to becoming great at prospecting is no different than becoming a world-class athlete, a talented musician, or a great artist. The secret is also common sense. It's a deliberate system of practice. Helping clients succeed, filling your pipeline, was designed with this in mind. We've developed a simple practice-based playbook system that gives sales leaders, formal or informal, a step-by-step guide. They can use this in a team environment to implement the behaviors learned and enable mastery of top performer actions and behaviors. Notice that I said implement and not reinforce. The verb implement means to put into effect, and the verb reinforce means to support. This small distinction makes a big difference, and it reflects one key reason why our system works. The key to moving the middle a little is implementing what they learn. Let me tell you about Daryl, a sales manager for a large software provider. Daryl knew he personally needed to get better at prospecting and was looking for help. He wanted to lead by example and was determined to do so. He was introduced to FranklinCovey and decided to try our playbook system. After only a few weeks of using our system, he noticed a significant increase in the quality of his pipeline. He was so impressed with the simplicity and effectiveness of our playbook process that he decided to implement the process with his intact sales team. It's not rocket science, he told us. It's mostly doing stuff we already knew. The playbook just made it easier to implement. It was intimidating before, but the playbook system broke the process down into bite-sized tasks that we could apply in the normal routine of sales calls. And it made all the difference to our team. It didn't take long for the rest of the organization to pay attention to what Daryl was accomplishing with his team. And soon the entire sales force was using our playbook system. Within 6 months, their pipeline had doubled. I would like to take a few minutes to introduce you to what's new in our approach. We look at filling your pipeline as a system. It's a paint-by-numbers process to predictably produce valuable prospecting results. The old system of making call after mind-numbing call beats people down, both the sales professional and the prospects, and simply doesn't work very well. People want to win. They want to succeed. And when you can show them the successful patterns of what to do and how to do it, they become excited and engaged. At FranklinCovey, we believe that the optimal way to get better results is to start by seeing things differently and then doing things differently. It's helpful to develop a new mindset, skill set, and tool set. If we want to get significant improvements in prospecting results, we need to see prospecting differently and do prospecting differently. Let me introduce you to Maria, a character in the training videos who learns to challenge what she sees to become a top performer. Maria is one of those top sales performers who has learned over time the principles and practices that are required to perform at a high level. But she hasn't always been that way. Maria had to break away from the traditional thinking and bad habits that wore her down and threatened to keep her from discovering the things we're sharing with you today. Thomas Kuhn said, "Every major breakthrough is usually a break with traditional ways of thinking." Stephen Covey made a similar observation, that if you want small changes, work on your behavior. If you want quantum leap changes, work on your paradigms. One of the most common mindsets we see in sales is the sales funnel. When we think about prospecting, we typically think about a funnel that is large on the top and very small at the bottom. Look at this screenshot from a search engine. We have been conditioned to think about prospecting as just a numbers game. May I suggest that the first step to becoming dramatically better at generating new business opportunities is to think differently about the funnel. Transform your funnel. Look at it more like this: qualified, better researched prospects in the top and better opportunities at the bottom. We saw this happen with a Toronto-based telecommunications company who used this prospecting approach and saw a 37% increase in appointments set during the first 30 days of using our Filling Your Pipeline playbook. This kind of success started for them and starts for you with seeing the funnel differently. A common myth is the notion that prospecting is about getting a meeting. So we try to convince them, try to change their mind, try to manipulate them. It can end up being something we do to someone rather than with them. Isn't that why you try to avoid those pesky salespeople on the phone or at the kiosks in the shopping malls? Beyond that myth is the reality that prospecting is about exploring mutual value, peer-to-peer, to see if it even makes sense for us to be talking. Sales, and especially value-based prospecting, is more about helping our clients succeed. It's a very different intent. Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE and world-renowned leadership guru, once said, "One thing we've discovered with certainty is that anything we do that makes the customer more successful inevitably results in a financial return for us." When our intention is to help our clients be more successful, they feel it, they sense it, and they reward us for it. Isn't it true that all of us have an innate sense for when someone has our best interest at heart, or vice versa? Think about it. Have you ever had an experience with a salesperson who you knew was trying to do something to you rather than for you? How did it make you feel? How did you respond? Now think about a time when you sensed that a salesperson had your best interest at heart. How could you tell? How did it make you feel? How did you respond? Do your customers feel that from you? Gandhi said, "The moment there is suspicion about a person's motives, everything he does becomes tainted." Based on what top performers do, we invite sales professionals to see prospecting differently, to approach prospecting with the intent to add value to our prospect's business. People sense this, and it impacts their willingness to share information with us. In addition to getting clear about value calling intent, we help salespeople organize for success. The very best prospectors have learned how to prioritize their prospects, using weighted characteristics that make them more likely to convert. They take time to prepare before each call by researching the company and people they will be talking to. They put themselves in the shoes of their prospects and try to understand the challenges and opportunities their prospects may be facing. They learn how to enable good decision-making in their client interactions. They are also meticulous about how they plan for these calls. They are clear about what the end in mind is. They have anticipated the questions and concerns that might come up, and they have prepared and practiced carefully writing opening statements. Let's take a moment to look at each one of these best-in-class behaviors individually. First, let's look at prioritize. During a one-day training session, you will be introduced to the prioritization tool. It's a spreadsheet of sorts that allows you to objectively analyze each of your prospects using a weighted criteria to rank the prospects in order of priority. This allows you to clearly identify prospects that you should spend your time contacting. The idea is that you start prospecting based on reason, not random. Working your way through your phone book or list is seldom a wise approach. Recently, I was in a work session with business development professionals from a multinational software development firm who each send out dozens of prospecting emails each day. During that training, we introduced the prioritization tool. I won't forget what one of them, Jason, said after working through several prospects on his list. He said, "Wow, of all the prospects, it was the one that was lowest on my list that scored the highest. I can't believe it." This was a big aha for Jason. Based on the criteria he had chosen and weighted by importance, he uncovered prospects that he might have otherwise overlooked. It happened that in our follow-up session, I had the chance to talk to Jason's manager. He told me that in the first week of his playbook, Jason had tripled his conversion rates on his prospecting emails. He said, at this rate, Jason will hit his yearly quota by the second quarter. Once you have prioritized your prospects, the next step is to prepare for your call. In our discussions with buyers, one of the topics they keep coming back to was the importance of being prepared. They want salespeople to have done their homework before they call. Do they know who I am, they ask. Do they understand my company, my industry? Our approach tells salespeople to understand the process of how to be prepared. Benjamin Franklin was quoted as saying, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." It seems the amount of time and attention we get with prospects is directly correlated with the amount of time we spend preparing. We should be looking for indications of what strategic initiatives our prospects have, what challenges they may be facing. We can be searching for blog posts and articles that indicate what our prospects are interested in. We show sales reps where to look and how to recognize trigger events. Today, there are a wide array of tools available to help sales professionals research and prepare for their calls. Prospects expect preparation. We help salespeople get there efficiently. As we look for insights into our prospects' goals and challenges, it's important that we try to put ourselves into their shoes. What are they thinking about? What are they worried about? What evidence do they see that proves that problems or opportunities exist? We have created a tool called Seeing Value from Your Prospect's Perspective. This helps you to identify possible issues that are important to your prospects. Think about what they might be seeing that indicates that there is an issue. And finally, what the financial impact of those issues could be. Once armed with this information, you are more prepared to call your prospects and talk about issues that are important to them. You gain respect for their situation and for them as individuals. With just these behaviors, salespeople are closer than ever to becoming effective prospectors. But there is one key behavior that will make a difference: the call plan. While planning is the key to successful prospecting, It's not just any kind of planning. The first step in your call plan is to thoughtfully consider what you want the client to say, do, or decide at the end of your prospecting call or email. Every sales call is not about making a sale. Remember your intent. But is rather to enable a good decision. In prospecting, that decision is, should we be talking? Or, does it make sense to get together? Or, would you be interested in talking more? Remember, you may only have 10, 15 seconds on your first call or email. Your end in mind should really be to decide whether or not it makes sense to keep talking. Note that I said, or not. I did that on purpose. It is vital that we make no an okay response and an acceptable option. It can be painful and expensive when you postpone a no. Making no an acceptable response makes it easier to get a meaningful yes. The next step to the call plan is questions. What questions do you want to make sure you ask during the call? What questions do you anticipate your prospect will ask? How will you answer? In addition to questions, it's also important to consider what concerns your prospect may have. We refer to these as yellow lights. What objections might they raise? How will you respond? What are you going to say when your prospect tells you they don't really have time to talk? What if they tell you that they're not interested? What do you say? When you have taken the time to anticipate questions, concerns, and objections, you will have the confidence to handle them in a respectful way. We facilitated a Filling Your Pipeline work session with a new sales team at one of the largest computer manufacturers in the world. They were preparing to call on CIOs at the largest financial institutions in New York City. They had 50 targeted prospects to secure appointments with. When we got to the yellow lights portion of the training, we had about 15 specific pushbacks that we had identified and prepared. We made the whole team practice them over and over using practice cards similar to these. Most of the team, many sales veterans, were annoyed at the idea of practicing. A week later, one of my colleagues checked back in with the sales manager and learned that they had already secured 21 of the 50 appointments. As I spoke with the individual team members, one of the newest and youngest on the team, who, by the way, had secured more appointments than anyone else on the team, told me that the preparation for yellow lights made all the difference in getting the appointments. When asked which yellow lights he had encountered, he replied, well, none. But the preparation gave me the confidence I needed to handle anything. And that's what it's all about. Regardless of how much experience you may or may not have, planning and preparing for calls will give you the confidence you need to be successful. It's what top performers do as a matter of routine. The last step in the call plan is to write out a carefully scripted opening statement. Now, I know what you were thinking. The last thing in the world that you want to do is come off sounding scripted. We agree. You never want to sound scripted. The actor John Wayne once said it takes about 3 weeks of rehearsing scripts for an actor to become spontaneous. Carefully written scripts are an essential part of our preparation for prospecting. Remember, we may only have about 10 to 15 seconds on our first call or email to say something of value that will pique the prospect's interest and agree to spend more time in dialogue with you. You have to know what you want to say and how you're going to say it. Creating your opening statement is pretty straightforward since you've already researched the company and people you're calling on. And you have taken the time to identify the likely challenges and opportunities that they are facing. You have also anticipated their questions, concerns, and pushbacks. So now you simply need to package it all into one short, compelling statement that creates interest and enables a decision. Remember our promise earlier? That your sales team can become great at filling your pipeline if you apply the mindset, skill sets, and tool sets of top performers. By applying a simple 12-week playbook system, you will produce significant, sustainable, and measurable results. After the training is complete, the playbook drives the implementation of all the key ideas salespeople have learned. From experience, we know that sustainable implementation that generates significant return on investment works best when leaders are engaged in working with their teams. This isn't always possible, so another option is salespeople working together in small groups. This works well too. Each salesperson has a specific implementation assignment for each week. Their playbook is part of their participant guide and is designed to sit comfortably on their desk as a weekly reminder. Each salesperson also receives electronic copies of all the tools and video files of new content instruction as part of their participant materials. For example, the implementation assignment for a given week could include watching a video to bridge the gap from classroom training to in-field implementation, preparing and practicing specific best practices, applying specific activities to new prospecting efforts. Each week would focus about 50 to 60 minutes of a salesperson's time on a system for getting new business. Accountability is key to improving performance. Every 4 weeks, for the 12-week playbook process, salespeople are encouraged to report their prospecting success to their leader and to FranklinCovey. As a facilitator of this program, you are encouraged to check in with sales leaders to learn about the successes and challenges that your teams are experiencing. This provides you with clear return on investment from the overall training and 12-week playbook process. The great news is that as a certified facilitator, you can offer helping clients succeed filling your pipeline in a number of ways. You have the flexibility to run live or virtual work sessions as one-day events or split over several. Following the training is when the 12-week playbook kicks in to give you the week-by-week implementation. We are excited to join you in this journey. Best of success to you as you begin the realization of significantly improved pipeline results.